Hi everybody. Welcome to today's reading of Artemis Fowl by Ian Colfer. We are in chapter 6, and here we go. Ellie P. Vreeville was one of the best and brightest. It was every little fairy's dream that one day he would grow up to don the stealth black jumpsuit of the Retrieval Commandos. These were the elite. Trouble was their middle name in the case of Captain Kelp. Trouble was actually his first name. He insisted on it at his manhood ceremony, having just been accepted into the academy. Trouble left his team down the sweeping avenue. As usual, he took his point position himself, determined to be the first into the fray, if, as he fervently hoped, a fray developed. "Check in," he whispered into the mic that wound snake-like from his helmet. "-1. "Nothing, Captain." "A big Notori, Captain." Captain Kelp winced. "We're in the Field Corporal Fowl procedure." "But Mommy said—" "I don't care what Mommy said, Corporal. Rank is rank. You will refer to me as Captain Kelp." "Yes, sir, Captain," sulked the corporal. "But don't ask me to iron your tunic anymore." Trouble zeroed in on his brother's channel, stuttering out the rest of the squad. "Shut up about Mommy, will you? And the ironing. You're only on this mission because I requested you. Now start acting like a professional, or get back to the perimeter." "Okay, Trubs." "Trouble," shouted Captain Kelp. "It's trouble, not Trubs or Trub. Trouble, okay?" "Okay, Trouble. Mommy's right. You're only a baby." Swearing very unprofessionally, Captain Kelp switched his headset back to the open channel. He was just in time to hear an unusual sound. "Ark!" "What was that?" "What?" "Don't know." "Nothing, Captain." But Trouble had done a sound recognition in service for his captain's exam, and he was pretty sure that "ark" had been caused by someone getting a chop across the windpipe. More than likely, his brother had walked into a shrub. "Grub, are you all right?" "That's Corporal Grub to you." Kelp viciously kicked a daisy. "Check in. Sound off in sequence. 1 okay. 2 okay. 3 bored but alive. 5 approaching West Wing." Kelp froze. "Wait, 4? You there, 4? What's your situation?" Zzz. Nothing except static. "Right, 4 is down, possibly an equipment malfunction. Still, we can't afford to take any chances. Regroup by the main door." Retrieval 1 crept together, making slightly less noise than a silk spider. Kelp did a quick head count. 11. 1 short of a full complement. 4 was probably wandering around the rose bushes, wondering why nobody was talking to him. Then Trouble noticed 2 things. 1, a pair of black boots was sticking out of a shrub beside the door, and 2, there was a massive human standing in the doorway. The figure was cradling a very nasty-looking gun in the crook of his arm. "Go silent," whispered Kelp, and immediately 11 full-face visors slid down to seal the sounds of his squad's breathing and communication. "Now, nobody panic. I think I can trace the sequence of events here. 4 is skulking around outside the door. The mudman opens it. 4 gets a whack on the noggin and lands in the bushes. No problem. Our cover is intact. Repeat, intact. So no witchy fingers. Please. Corporal Kelp. Check 4's vitals. The rest of you make a hole and keep it quiet." The squad stepped back carefully until they were standing on the manicured grassy verge. The figure before them was indeed impressive, without doubt the biggest human any of them have ever seen. "Devit," breathed 2. "Maintain radio silence except in emergency," ordered Kelp. "Swearing is hardly an emergency." Secretly, however, he concurred with the sentiment. This was one time he was glad to be shielded. That man looked as if he could squash 6 fairies in one massive fist. Grub returned to his slot. 4 stable, concussed, I guess, but otherwise okay. Shield's off, though, so I stuck them in the bushes. "Well done, Corporal. Good thinking." The last thing they needed was for 4's boots to be spotted. The man moved, lumbering casually along the path. He may have glanced left or right. It was difficult to tell beneath the hood pulled over his eyes. Odd for a human to wear a hood on such a fine night. "Safety catches off," ordered Trouble. He imagined his men rolling their eyes like they haven't had their safeties off for the past half an hour. Still, if you if you had to go by the book in case of the tribunal later on, there was a time when retrieval blasted first and answer questions never. But not anymore. Now there was always some do-gooder civilian banging on about civil rights, even for humans, if you can believe it. The mountain stopped right in the middle of the squad. If he had been able to see them, it would be the perfect tactical position. Their own firearms were virtually useless, as they would probably do more damage to each other than to the human. Fortunately, the entire squad was invisible, with the exception of 4 who was safely hidden in what appeared to be a rhododendron. "Buzz batons, fire 'em up!" Just in case. No harm in being cautious. And when the LEP officers were switching weapons, right at that moment when their hands were fumbling with holsters, that's when the mudman spoke. "Evening, gentlemen," he said, sweeping back his hood. Funny that, thought Trouble. It was almost as if... Then he saw the makeshift goggles. "Cover!" he screamed. "Cover!" But it was too late. No option but to stand and fight. And that was no option at all. Butler could have taken them from the parapet, one at a time, with the ivory hunter's rifle, but that wasn't the plan. This was all about making an impression, sending a message. It was standard procedure with any police force in the world to send in cannon fodder first before opening negotiations. It was almost expected that they would meet with resistance, and Butler was happy to oblige. He peeked out through the letterbox, and oh, happy coincidence, there was a pair of goggled eyes peeking right back at him. It was just too fortuitous to pass up. "Bedtime," said Butler, heaving the door with a mighty shoulder. The fairy flew several feet before alighting in the shrubbery. Juliet would be devastated. She loved rhododendrons. One down, several to go. Butler pulled up the peaked hood on his field jacket, stepping onto the porch. There they were, spread out like a squadron of action men. If not for the array of very proficient-looking weaponry hanging from each belt, it would have been almost comical. Sliding his finger casually under the trigger guard, Butler strode into the midst. The bulky one, at 2 o'clock, was giving the orders. You could tell from the heads angled his way. The leader gave a command, and the squad switched to close-quarter weapons. It made sense. They'd only cut themselves to pieces with firearms. Time for action. "Evening, gentlemen," Butler said. He couldn't help it, and it was worth it for that one moment of consternation. Then his gun was up and blazing. Captain Kelp was the first casualty, a titanium-tipped dart puncturing the neck of his suit. He went down sluggishly as though the air had turned to water. 2 more of the squad were dropped before they had any idea what was going on. It must be quite traumatic, thought Butler dispassionately, to lose an advantage that you've held for centuries. By now, the remains of Retrieval 1 had their buzz batons fired up and raised, but they made the mistake of hanging back, waiting for a command that was not forthcoming. This gave Butler an opportunity to take fight to them, and as if he needed another advantage. Even so, for a second, the manservant hesitated. These beings were so small, like children. Then Grubb clipped him on the elbow with his buzz baton, and 1,000 bolts spread across Butler's chest. All sympathy for the little people vanished instantly. Butler grabbed the offending baton, swinging weapon, and bearing like a set of bolas. Grubb squealed as he was released, his newfound momentum carrying him directly into 3 of his comrades. Butler continued the swinging motion, driving punishing punches into the chests of 2 more fairies. Another clambered onto his back, stinging him rapidly with his baton. Butler fell on him. Something cracked, and the stinging stopped. Suddenly, there was a barrel under his chin. One of the Retrieval had managed to get his weapon cocked. "Freeze, my boy," droned a helmet-filtered voice. It was a serious-looking gun. Liquid coolant bubbled along its length. "Just give me a reason." Butler rolled his eyes. Different race, same macho cliches. He slapped the fairy open-handed. To the little man, it must have been like the sky falling on his head. "That reason enough for you?" Butler scrambled to his feet. Fairy bodies were scattered all around him in various stages of shock and unconsciousness. Scared, definitely. Dead? Probably not. Mission accomplished. One little guy was faking, though. You could tell by the way his tiny knees knocked together. Butler picked him up by the neck, finger and thumb, easily moving around the back. "Name?" Corporal Kelp." "Well, Corporal, you tell your commander that the next time I see armed forces coming in here, they'll be picked off by sniper fire. No darts either. Armor-piercing bullets." "Yes, sir. Sniper fire. Got it. Seems fair." Good. You are, however, permitted to remove your injured. Most generous of you. But if I see so much of a twinkle of any weapon on any of the medics, I might be tempted to denotate a few of the mines I have planted in the ground. Grubb swallowed, his pallor increasing behind the visor. On our medics, crystal clear. Butler sat the fairy down, brushing his tunic with massive fingers. Now, final thing. Listening? Furious nods. I want a negotiator, someone who can make decisions, not some no-ranker who has to run off back to base after every demand. Understood? Fine. That is, I'm sure it'll be fine. Unfortunately, I'm one of those no-rankers. So, you see, I can't actually guarantee you it'll be fine. Butler was sorely tempted to drop-kick this little fellow back to his camp. Very well, I understand. Just shut up. Grubb almost agreed. Then he clamped his mouth shut and nodded. Good. Now, before you go, collect all weapons and helmets and make a little pile right here. Grubb took a deep breath. Ah, well, may as well go out a hero. I can't do that. Oh, really? And why not? Grubb drew himself up to his full height. An LEP officer never relinquishes his weapons. Butler nodded. Fair enough. Thought I'd ask. Off you go, then. Hardly able to believe his luck, Grubb scurried back towards the command tower. He was the last fairy standing. Trouble was snoring in the gravel, but he, Grubb Kelp, had faced down the mud monster. Wait until Mommy heard about this. Holly sat on the edge of her bed, fingers curled around the metal base. She lifted slowly, taking the weight on her arms. The strain threatened to pop her elbows from their sockets. She held it for a second and then slammed the frame into the concrete. A satisfying cloud of dust and splinters swirled around her knees. Good, she grunted. Holly eyed the camera. Doubtless they were watching her. No time to waste. She flexed her fingers, repeating the maneuver again and again until the steel base left deep welts in her finger joints. With each impact, more and more splinters popped from the fresh floor. After several moments, the cell door burst open and Juliet fell into the room. What are you doing? She panted. Trying to knock the house down? I'm hungry, shouted Holly, and I'm fed up of waving at that stupid camera. Don't you feed your prisoners around here? I want some food. Juliet's fingers curled into a fist. Artemis had warned her to be civil, but this was a limit. No need to get your pan or whatever in a twist. So what do you fairies eat? Got any dolphin? Holly asked sarcastically. Juliet shuddered. No, I don't, you beast. Fruit, then, or vegetables. Make sure they're washed. I don't want any of your chemical poisons in my blood. Ha ha, what a riot you are. Don't worry, all our produce is grown naturally. Juliet paused on her way to the door. And don't you go forgetting the rules. No trying to escape from the house. And there's no need to break up the furniture either. Don't make me demonstrate my full Nelson. As soon as Juliet's footsteps had faded, Holly began smashing the bed into the concrete. That was the thing about fairy bonds. The instructions had to be given eye to eye, and they had to be very precise. Just saying there was no need to do a thing wasn't specifically forbidding to an elf to do it. And another thing, Holly had no intention of escaping from the house. That wasn't to say that she didn't mean to get out of her cell. Artemis had added yet another monitor to the bank. This one was linked to a camera in Angeline Fell's attic room. He spared a moment to check in on his mother. Sometimes it bothered him, having a camera in her room. It seemed almost like spying, but it was for her own good. There was always the danger that she could hurt herself, and at the moment she was sleeping peacefully, having swallowed the sleeping pill that Juliet had left on her tray. All part of the plan, a vital part. Butler entered the control room. He was clutching a fistful of fairy hardware and rubbing his neck. Tricky little blighters. Artemis looked up from the monitor bank. Any problems? Nothing major. Those little batons pack quite a punch, though. How's our prisoner? Fine. Juliet's getting her something to eat. I'm afraid Captain Short is going a bit stir-crazy. On the screen, Holly was smashing her cot into the concrete. It's understandable, noted the manservant. Imagine her frustration. It's not as though she can tunnel her way out. Artemis smiled. Nope, the entire castle is built on a bed of limestone. Not even a dwarf could tunnel his way out of here, or in. Wrong as it happened. Dead wrong. A landmark moment for Artemis Fowl. The LEP had procedures for emergencies like this one. Admittedly, these did not include the retrieval squad getting hammered by a lone enemy. Still, that just made the next step all the more urgent, especially with the faintest of orange tinges creeping into the sky. "Are we good to go?" roared Rue into his mic as though it wasn't whisper sensitive. Good to go, thought Foley, busy wiring the last dish on the watchtower. These military types and their catchphrases. Good to go, lock and load. I don't know, but I've been told. So insecure. Out loud he said, "No need to shout, Captain. These headsets can pick up a spider scratching in Madagascar." "Is there a spider scratching in Madagascar?" "Well, I don't know. They can't heart really." "Well, stop changing the subject, Foley, and answer the question." The centaur scowled. The commander took everything so literally. He plugged the dish's modem lead into his laptop. "Okay, we're good to go." "About time, too. Right, flip the switch." For the third time in as many moments, Foley gritted his horsey teeth. He was indeed the stereotypical, unappreciative genius. Flick the switch, if you don't mind. Root didn't have the cranial capacity to appreciate what he was trying to do here. Stopping time wasn't just a matter of pressing an on button. There was a series of delicate procedures that had to be performed with utmost precision. Otherwise, the stop zone could end up just as much ash as radioactive slop. While it was true that ferries had been stopping time for millennia, these days, with satellite communication and the internet, humans were liable to notice if a zone was dropped out of time for a couple of hours. There was an age when you could throw a blanket stoppage over a whole country and the mud people would simply think the gods were angry. But not anymore. Nowadays, the humans had instruments for measuring anything, so if there was any time stopping to be done, it had better be fine-tuned and precise. In the old days, 5 elfin warlords would form a pentagram around a target and spread the magic shield over it, temporarily stopping time inside the enchanted enclosure. This was fine as far as it went, provided the warlords didn't have to use the bathroom. Many a siege was lost because an elf had one glass of wine too many. Warlocks tire quickly too, and their arms grew sore. On a good day, you had maybe an hour and a half, which was hardly worth the trouble in the first place. It was Foley's idea to mechanize the whole procedure. He had the warlocks do their thing into lithium batteries and set up a network of receiver dishes around the designated area. Sounds simple? Well, it wasn't, but there were definite advantages. For one thing, there were no more power surges. Batteries didn't try to show off to each other. You could calculate exactly how many power cells were needed, and sieges could be extended for up to 8 hours. As it happened, the Fowl estate was the perfect location for a time stop, isolated with a definite boundary. It even had elevated towers for the dishes, for heaven's sakes. It was almost as if Artemis Fowl wanted it to be time stopped. Foley's finger hesitated over the button. Could it be possible? After all, the human youth had been one step ahead throughout this whole affair. "Commander, are we online yet?" Not exactly. There's something." Root's reaction nearly blew off the woofers in Foley's earpiece. "No, Foley, there isn't something. None of your bright ideas. Thank you very much. Captain Short's life is in danger, so push the button before I climb that tower and push it with your face." "Ooh, touchy," muttered Foley, and he pushed the button. And that's where we'll end for today, and then tomorrow we'll finish up chapter 6. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.